All right, welcome to the second piece of this gear puzzle, which is going over settings on your iPhone, settings on your gimbal, and pairing your gimbal and your phone harmoniously for the best possible outcome. So that is what this video is going to be all about. Stay tuned. We'll go through FPS, frame rate, ISO, shutter speed, etc. And then we'll go through what the following modes are on your gimbal and some more stuff. All right. Before we get into that, share the course. As always, I am trying to make a revolution in the real estate marketing space, so I need your help. I can't do this without you. Share the course. That would be greatly appreciated. And someone else will appreciate it too. So warning, this is the most important video in the entire course up to this point. This is the most important video, so don't skip, don't fast forward or anything like that. You can, however, put it in a 2x speed. Put it in 2x speed. I don't talk very fast. 1.5 times speed also works. But yeah, just hurry it up. It'll save you a lot of time. So without further ado, excuse me, let's get into iPhone settings. So the first that we're going to go over is frame rate. What is frame rate? You've probably seen this, interface when you're taking a video. It'll give you what's called the resolution, and then after that is that number. What is that number? That is your frame rate. So a frame rate is frames per second. So how many frames are taken in a given second of video? So this is very important with real estate video for multiple different situations. And if you don't like fully comprehend what frame rate is, videos are moving images. So and the standard is to measure how many frames or images are being captured in a given second. So if you have 24 frames per second, that means that 24 images are being taken in that 1 second. If it's 60 frames per second, that's obviously more than double. So normally smartphones will default to either probably 30, but maybe 60, or probably not 24, but potentially 24. So that is frame rate. Resolution. So resolution is, I'm going to go right back to that picture in just a second. Resolution is the amount of detail in a given image. So as you can see, it has 4K up in that corner. That is your resolution. So you could do 4K, you could do 1080p, and you could do HD. HD is typically 720. 720. All right. And ISO. So ISO is, the actual acronym is like International Standardization Organization, something really stupid and crazy. That is not important at all to know. But what is important to know is it's essentially the amount of digital brightness that your computer in your phone or camera, your computer in your camera is giving your video. So what this means in very plain terms is the higher your ISO, the more grainy, but the brighter your your visual is going to be. So I'm just going to give you an example really super quick. I don't know if this is going to work too well, but I have a light just to my left here. If you can see, it's pretty crisp for the most part, but when I turn that light off, it's going to compensate. So if you could zoom in, maybe like on this side of the video, there's going to be a lot of compensation. So the camera in my my camera right now, the computer in my camera is trying to brighten it up on its own. So this isn't a great example. It's a lot more prevalent in smartphones. So if you enter into a room and you have your settings on auto, If you enter into a room, then that's maybe not too bright, maybe the lights are off, it'll crank that ISO up and it'll look super, super grainy. Some of you know what I'm talking about, but yeah, just keep in mind that the higher your ISO, the grainier your image, but it's also going to appear brighter. The lower the ISO, the more crisp your image, the more kind of cinematic it'll look. But there's a time and place to crank the ISO up. It's just, it's just like anything. And then shutter speed. Shutter speed is how long the shutter stays open for. And what this, what this does is it's also responsible for letting light in. But when that shutter is open, it's soaking, like that sensor is soaking up that light. So if your shutter speed is super quick, super short, it's only going to let light in for just a quick second. So it's going to be a very dark image. But on, inversely, if you have a higher shutter speed, or I guess slower shutter speed, that's going to let that sensor in, soak up all that light, and your photo or video is going to be a lot brighter. So this could be this could be very impactful if you are in a dark room and you might not have too much light. But where this is kind of a problem is when you have that shutter open, that's also going to put motion blur into your photo. So if you have a super wide or a super long exposure to sun, it's also going to blur in into that room a lot worse. Here, I'm just going to look up an example. I'll be right back. So here you can see the shutter speed on the left is 1/160th of a second. And the shutter speed on the right is 4 seconds. So huge difference with the amount of time that they're letting that light soak into the sensor. So in this situation, what they probably did is they put an ND filter on their lens. So what an ND filter does is it's basically sunglasses for your camera. So when when you want to have let's just go back to the pictures really quick. So let's say you want to have that really blurry image in your video or in your photo or whatever. What you're going to want to do is you're going to prioritize that shutter speed. So if you're going to prioritize that shutter speed, well, you're going to have to you're going to have to lower your ISO to 100 or as low as it goes, but that's still not going to be dark enough. So you need to put those sunglasses on your camera or on your lens to make that photo usable. So that's why these two photos aren't aren't brighter or like more or less exposed. The camera, the photographer knew what he was doing or knew what she was doing, and they wanted to show the difference between 1/60th of a second and 4-second shutter speed. So what I'm saying here is they've compensated for that exposure, but this is the difference. This is the second difference of what shutter speed does. So shutter speed lets in more light, but that also that doesn't just stop at sun and brightness. So it's also gathering more information the longer that shutter is open. So the quicker that shutter is open, so I don't know if it zoomed in on the video too, but it's a lot more crisp. So it's just snapping that picture in time, and that's what happens. But in this situation, it's letting time go, like letting time pass by. So you're not going to see that one shot of that water hitting that whatever it's called there, it's going to be a lot more a lot more evened out, a lot more smoothed out. Whereas 1/60th of a second is that moment in time, that whatever you're shooting at that point. So to kind of tie this into video, why this is important for video is when you're shooting a video, if you have your shutter speed on, let's just say 1/60th of a second, it's going to look super, super crisp, but almost crisp as like to the point of jittery. Sorry, I didn't say that word very well. But when you have your when you have your shutter speed that quick, it looks almost artificial. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lower that, and I'll give you a rule of thumb in just a second, but you're going to want to lower that so it looks the most natural. And that's why you can't just crank your shutter speed, as long as you can possibly keep it open for video. You can't just do that to get more light in, because it has other effects. So that is kind of what I wanted to explain there, and we'll get right back into the presentation. Just a really quick recap what we went over. So frame rate is the amount of images in a given second of video. Resolution is the level of detail in that video. ISO is ISO is the amount of digital compensation for brightness, and shutter speed is the the period of time where the sensor is accepting information, accepting input, I guess. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. So why change my settings? That's a wonderful question. So as I said, with shutter speed and ISO, very important to note this. Those two things are responsible for light situations. So high light situations, you're going to want to dim that down. Low light situations, you're also going to want to dim that, or you're going to want to boost that up. But it's not as easy as just cranking up your ISO or lowering your shutter speed to 1,000th of a second, because again, that footage just doesn't look very good. So how do we combat this? Well, let's take an example. If we're outside, for example, and we want to shoot an approach shot of the home, well, it's going to be sunny. We know that it's going to be sunny. So first, we're going to lower our ISO all the way down, because even with our ISO all the way down, that's going to create going to create the darkest and most clear, crisp image. But now we have shutter speed to deal with. Well, shutter speed, if we want a crisp looking shot, we're going to want to, or if we want the video exposed properly, then we're going to want to make sure that shutter speed is dialed in. But even with the ISO as low as possible, it still might be overexposed. So we might have to make that shutter speed, super, super snappy. But then we go into the problem of having kind of jittery footage. Well, how do we go about that? That's where an ND filter is going to help you out the most. From my experience, I've been able to get away with just lowering my ISO as much as possible, and then shooting in the lowest, or I guess in the longest exposure I can, without getting super jittery or getting overexposed. I hope that all made sense. Sorry, I was kind of all over the place, but moral of the story: if you're outside in highlight situations, put your ISO as low as possible, and then adjust your shutter speed accordingly. And if you're in super low light situations, you're going to want to adjust your shutter speed first. And when you adjust your shutter speed, this is where I will explain the rule of thumb. So the rule of thumb with shutter speed is you want your shutter speed to be twice your frame rate. So if you have a frame rate of 24 frames per second, which is what you should be shooting in most of the time, if you have a frame rate of 24 seconds, what you're going to do is crank that shutter speed up to 1/48th of a second, or 1/50th. Most 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 softwares and controls are going to give you anywhere from 5 to 10 increments of 5 to 10, I guess, tenths of a second. So you might, if you're going for 24, the closest you might be able to get is 1/50th. That's totally fine. So do that, and then when you adjust for that shutter speed, then it's time to start messing with your ISO. So as low as of an ISO as possible, with still being exposed properly in that dark room, is going to be your best bet. So hopefully that that ironed out all of those confusions and questions that you had. But if not, always feel free to go into the community and ask the questions there. So blur, this is something that a lot of filmmakers try to really dial in, and it's not exactly the easiest, but that's why I just gave you the rule of thumb, which is double your frame rate. So your shutter speed should be double your frame rate, and that should give you the most natural looking motion blur to your eyes. So that will accomplish just about the best motion blur that you can get. But if you are, let's say, you're going to be slowing down a clip. If you have, maybe you want to take a video of a fan that's moving really, really fast and you just want to slow it down. Or maybe you want to shoot a faucet that you also want to slow down. Well, you're going to want to shoot that in 60 frames per second, because that, you have more information in that given second that you can slow down and look smoother. So we'll get into that in just a second. And speed, well, I guess I kind of got into that. So speed, so you're going to want to shoot in 60 frames per second anytime you are slowing something down, and anytime you're speeding something up. I would personally shoot in anywhere from 24 to 30. So keep that in mind whenever you're on a shoot. If you and this is why it's so important to visualize exactly how you're going to flow throughout the property, what shots you're going to take, etc. So we'll get into all of that in the preparation lesson. So speed, very important to be cognizant of. White balance. This is something that most phones will just come with it auto. I would guess that all phone cameras come with it on auto, which is fine for just doing whatever with. But most situations are going to be either more blue or more either cooler or warmer than they should be. So that is why I would recommend either downloading the DJI Mimo app. So that is what controls the gimbal that I use, and hopefully you use as well. So you can either do that, or Blackmagic has a mobile video not editor, but mobile video shooting tool to give you more control over your settings. So you can check that out in the resource hub when we get to it, or actually I'll have a link to go to those apps down below and how you get to those. But those apps will allow you to adjust the shutter speed, the ISO, obviously your resolution. They'll allow you to turn internal stabilization off, because you're going to have it on a gimbal. So when you when you have internal stabilization on and you have it on a gimbal, you are having it stabilize, and then your phone's trying to stabilize it too. So it actually overcompensates. So what you're going to want to do is you can turn that off in that app, and then now you just have your phone that's being stabilized on a gimbal. No overcompensation is happening. You're just getting the smoothest possible shot. So you can edit all of that stuff, or you can control all of that stuff in this app. So super powerful. And you can also adjust the white balance. So when you adjust the white balance, it'll give you what's called a histogram. You don't need to know anything about that. A histogram will essentially show you how properly exposed your photo or video is. Again, you don't need to know a whole lot about that. Honestly, if you just scroll the Kelvin, so the white balance, to a certain level, whatever looks the best, that will be just fine. You don't need to dial it in with the histogram. So those are the things that you should definitely be aware of. And I'm just going to go into shutter speed again, because this is a very important concept that I don't want you guys to, I guess, have any sort of confusion on. So let's say I film 1 second of a video at 24 frames per second. Let's say I want to slow that down to 50% speed. Okay, so now a video that I took that's 1 second, at 24 frames per second, I'm slowing it down to 50% speed. So now it's going to be a 2 second long video, and in that 2 seconds, I have 24 frames. Or inversely, in that 1 second, I have 12 frames. Now, if I have one video, or if I have a 1 second video at 60 frames per second, so at the 50% speed, that will be 30 frames in that 1 second, or 60 frames in the 2 seconds. So put that in half. Now you have 30 images in 1 second as opposed to 12. You can see, how much more information and how much more jittery that's going to look if you're shown 12 images in that second or 30 images in that second. Almost a 3 times increase in the amount of different frames. So, like, unique frames, I should say. So definitely make sure when you're shooting slow motion shots, or shots that you want to put in slow motion, put it to 60 frames per second. When you're shooting shots that you're going to speed up, feel free to keep that in 24 frames per second. All right, and how to manipulate your settings. I kind of went over this with the app that you should definitely be aware of. So this can be changed right inside of your camera app, but you will have a lot more control with these other apps. So you can go to your settings and you can change the default settings on your camera app, which is also very powerful. But again, this, it doesn't let you unlock your shutter speed or your white balance. So that's why one of these apps is super powerful. You can change it right on the Osmo Mobile 6 app, so the Mimo app. That's what it's called, to control your gimbal. You can also control a lot of settings on your phone camera. So that is also super powerful. All right, now we are going to get into gimbal settings. So give me 1 second. So some functions of the gimbal. Why use a gimbal? So you have axis stabilization. That just means your shot is going to be smooth. At this point, we should understand that. Portable / foldable. As I showed you in, I think it was the last video, it's super small. You can go like that, boom, and Here, this is the tripod that you can add to it. So this is my iPhone 14 Plus. So keep that size in mind. This is the gimbal. That's how freaking small it is. It's like an inch. It's maybe an inch taller. And I showed you in the last video, I can put this gimbal in my pocket and I can carry it wherever I want. I could put that in one pocket, and I could put this in my back pocket or in my other pocket, and I could carry that whole setup with me without a bag, without anything. So obviously, if you are a woman, you might not have extremely large pockets like like some of us have, like some of us guys have. But if you have a purse, if you have a little, a little, it could be that big, and you could toss this in there. So yeah, definitely super portable. And gesture control, I haven't messed around with this. I don't feel it's too important for my use. But what gesture control is if you want to, let's just say you don't have a videographer with you, which most people don't. That's why you'd get one of these things, and that's why you're learning it yourself. Which props to you, absolute props to you. I don't know if I've said that yet. Gesture control is, let's say that that this camera looking at my face is my iPhone camera that's attached to my gimbal. So what I would do is I would put my hand up, and that would signal my gimbal to start recording. So my gimbal would then send a signal to my phone that, hey, we got to start recording. So there are different gestures that you can do to you know stimulate different actions. Sorry, that's not the right word for it, but make different actions happen, trigger different actions. Extension rod. So this is something that, like, if you have maybe a super high vaulted ceiling that you want to take a really like speculative shot of, you can oh, all right, bear with me. So you can extend this. Quite a bit. As you can see, I can't even barely fit it in the frame. It's just about, I would say it's at least a foot long, or a foot tall, I should say. And that will allow you to take different shots. Or if you want to hold it out and have a selfie, a selfie stick, you have that as well. So you can find probably a much more in-depth explanation of the gimbal, but I just want to explain the settings that you are going to need for our purpose. Active track, so you can click either the trigger button, or you can select a square that highlights a subject. And what that does is it tells the camera, hey, we are going to lock onto that object, and wherever we go, my camera is going to stay locked onto that and stabilize. Super cool. I've used this in a lot of different ways, but that is something that you're going to want to get comfortable with. Panorama. I've never taken a panorama shot, or both photo or video on the gimbal yet, but it seems it seems like super intuitive, because if you think about a panorama shot, that I don't know if you've done this before, but you can take a panorama of a really wide field of view, and it'll tell you this line that you have to stay on, like the for horizontal leveling, I guess you could say. And you're going to deviate from it just a little bit unless you've done it a ton of times. So I would imagine, I haven't done this, and this isn't very specific to real estate video, but I want to put this in there. I would imagine the gimbal will it will pan very smoothly. Panorama, it'll pan very smoothly. All right, and dynamic zoom. So this is a feature that they have. It's like a pre-recorded shot. What you'll do is you will you will you will walk forward, and it will automatically kind of like zoom out, making a really cool um, really cool kind of accent shot, I guess you could say. I don't use this for real estate video, but again, I just want to put this in there just so you know what it is. In story mode, similar to dynamic zoom, it has video templates. So if you're in this situation or this situation, you can click story mode. You can read some descriptions of a film that you could create that's basically templated, and you throw your phone on the gimbal and you record those shots exactly how they have them. You'll trim it to that amount of time that each clip should be, and it's kind of like a hand-holding experience for filmmaking, which is kind of cool. I I haven't used this story mode because I create videos that I want to put my creative touch on. I don't want this to be something that someone tells me how to do, I guess you could say. So that's why I personally don't use story mode. But if you want to make really cool videos, you could probably make really cool videos with that. So just something that I wanted to put in there. All right. Modes. So what modes does your gimbal come with? So if you can see on this screen here, it has a pretty long screen, and what's going to happen is when you turn it on, it'll just auto pop on. It'll tell you what. All right, I need to put my phone on. It'll tell you what mode you're in. So as you can see, it has that little white symbol there. So now what happens when we hit mode? It'll change, and then one more time it'll change, one more time it'll change, and then it'll go back. So what this does is it toggles, or it switches through different different settings and different like axis locks that you can take advantage of. So the first one is follow, and then so that that's good for. I use that and the next one for the majority of my shots. So that locks the axes that you would like it to lock, I guess. So with follow, it's a very smooth like back and forth and up and down just a little bit. But with tilt locked, it's not going to let you go up or down much. But it is going to let you flow side to side a little bit. And it's not going to let you tilt the camera anyway. So the horizontal plane will be leveled with both of those settings. FPV. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. So FPV is going to allow the camera to sway this way or that way. So what this would look like with my loom right now is since I said that the horizontal axis on the first two will be level, the third mode, which is FPV, might go like this a little bit. So it'll if this is your phone on the gimbal, the first two modes, don't tilt it this way. But FPV, if you move the gimbal this way, and if if the momentum takes it that way, the camera will move like that. So this is cool if you're like following someone, or if you're like running, or something like that. And you're like making a turn. It'll turn with you, I guess. That's cool, but not important for real estate video. I would focus on follow and tilt locked. So I do use FPV for some accent shots, but I'm not going to get into that because that is that's a lot more advanced. Maybe I'll go into that in the advanced shooting techniques portion. And then finally is spin shot. So this is going to lock all axes besides that axis of tilting. So yeah, that is that's all. I don't use that for real estate at all. Controlling your phone or controlling your gimbal with your phone, or vice versa. So there is your joystick. I showed you a little earlier. So this is your joystick. If you want it to look up, you point up. Want it to look, it would be right, I guess, in terms of the gimbal. You would point right, left, down, etc. That is the joystick, and you can adjust the speed at which your camera goes in that direction from low, medium to high. So it defaults to medium, which is normal. But in my opinion, if you want to have the most control over your gimbal, you will put it into slow, actually, because that will make your shots a lot more smooth. So active track, I kind of went through active track quite a bit, but that I think active track, the best use case for active track is when you are on the exterior of a home and you select a certain portion. Let's say you're looking at the front door. What you'll do is you'll put your tracking box on the left side of the house, and then you'll walk in kind of an arc around the house with looking at that, with having the house centered the entire time. I guess I'm going the shot techniques. I'm not gonna, you can extrapolate the information however you please, but camera settings. So camera settings, I also went over. You can adjust a lot of those in the DJI Mimo app, or you can get that Blackmagic app that I talked about earlier. You'll be able to find that in the description or the copy portion of this course. And then the scroll wheel. So the scroll wheel is something that you should definitely be aware of. So this is the scroll wheel on the side there. And if you click it once, it will switch from zooming into an object, like zooming in with your optical zoom, and it will switch from that to focus, like manual or autofocus. I would highly recommend you stay on autofocus unless you are super dialed in with I guess your gimbal and your phone settings. Where this could be cool is, let's say you're entering a bedroom, but you want it to go from like not focused into into focus. That could be a situation where you turn it off autofocus, but I would highly recommend just keeping it on the optical zoom, because optical zoom, you can just flip right to the wide angle lens and start recording with the wide angle lens. If you want to switch to one-time zoom for an accent shot, or maybe more than one-time zoom for an accent shot, you can do that with the scroll wheel as well. All right, DJI mics. So I'm not going to give you a super elaborate tutorial on DJI mics, because quite transparently, they're just super easy to use for pretty much all purposes. But I just feel as though more I don't know, more explanation on these things is just overkill. So as you can see, I have this attached right here. What I do is I plug my transmitter into my my dongle or my adapter, or whatever you want to call it, and it connects into my computer. All of that is done without me doing anything. So I take my transmitter, I plug it into that adapter, and I have clean, crisp audio going into my computer. What I do with this thing right here is there's a little power button on the side. I hold, like, press and hold that button. That turns on. That connects to my transmitter, and once my transmitter is connected, it shows me a little level bar. So as you know, I can see my levels moving up and down and up and down, right on, right over there. So I know that it's working. So this is super cool because it comes with a USB-C. Here, actually, I'm not going to show you that right now. It comes with a USB-C adapter with the transmitter, and it also comes with a Lightning adapter. So if you don't have an iPhone 15 Pro or iPhone 15 or whatever, and you have a simple Lightning, you can plug that transmitter directly into your phone and record really high quality audio super easily. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Full tutorial on YouTube. This isn't my tutorial, by the way. This is just, this is actually the tutorial that I watched to learn what I know about about the mic. And of all of that, I don't think most of it is really relevant or important. But it's good to know. It's good to know your way around the settings. I just went through the basics. Summary. Let's give you a little recap here. So we learned how to change the settings on iPhone. We learned how to change the settings roughly on the gimbal and what you need to know to navigate the gimbal, as well as the microphone. What you need to know to get around that. So the functionality, we went through the modes, we went through a couple of the key features, and microphone basics. Again, props and lighting, completely optional. It will enhance, especially lighting. Lighting will enhance your video. But is it really, is it the best use of your time? I personally don't think so. So with that being said, this is Mobile Video Mastery. Let's get after it.